Welcome to Rob Schmidt Tonight. It doesn't get much lower than this. This week, Andrew Cuomo and Lori Lightfoot, a left-wing governor and mayor who hold power over two of the country's biggest economic engines, Chicago and New York, completely flipped their script and announced reopening needs to happen immediately in this country. Cuomo led the charge earlier this week. Take a listen.
We simply cannot stay closed. We will have nothing left to open. We must reopen the economy, but we must do it smartly and safely.
And then Lori Lightfoot followed suit just yesterday.
I feel very strongly that we are very close to a point where we should be talking about opening up our bars and restaurants.
Oh, no kidding, Lori. Well, there's an update. The state of Washington began the reopening process this week as well, and it is just incredible how shameless politicians can be. It is amazing that they don't think people see clear as day what is happening here. COVID-19 right now is exploding in this country. Here is Joe Biden today.
Things will get worse before they get better. I told you I'll always level with you.
The problem is, COVID restrictions are no longer useful. In fact, they are now a deterrent because Democrats are about to have total control of government, which means all the lockdown measures must end. The lockdowns have served their purpose. They have destroyed countless businesses and livelihoods of millions of people, but for a good cause. It was all in the name of ending the Trump presidency. Mission accomplished. Thank you, Americans, for suffering through this hell so Democrats could kick Trump out of Washington. Your $1,400 payments as the checks will come in the mail here pretty soon, of course. And let me make this clear. These people have known for months that they were going to do this. They stalled, of course, to keep Trump's economy shuttered and will now reopen in conjunction with Joe Biden's inauguration. It's as simple as that. It'll start with restaurants and bars, as Lori Lightfoot said. It'll expand to less people working from home. It'll happen pretty fast. New York and Chicago, again, two of the biggest engines in the country, are about to reopen and full steam ahead for the Biden economy to take off like a rocket ship. Think about how many politicians we listen to scream and holler and cry about President Trump and governors like Florida's Ron DeSantis not caring if people die, literally killing people with their policies. The media helped, of course, a lot. Every day we had to hear this kind of garbage.
Ignoring a pandemic does not make it go away. That's why states like Florida are in such dire straits. He made Trump happy, Governor DeSantis did, and now more Floridians than they can count accurately appear to be sick.
There's nobody who has been more wrong about this than President Donald Trump. Many of those deaths, Mr. President, are on you and your terrible response to this virus.
It was all politics, every bit of it. Wait until next week. These two, both of them, will be harping on the need to save small businesses. They'll say, we can't stay locked down forever. It's about personal responsibility. They're going to sound exactly like Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis 6 months ago. They will. It's all just a game. This is how ugly the game is. And we, the people, the Americans, are all just pawns in this game. Here is the New York curve for COVID-19. Clear as day. It was really bad last spring. Then it eased up dramatically over the summer. And then this fall and winter, it exploded. You can see right here, you can see this is us right now towards the end, spiking higher and higher. There we go. Right there. There's January 14th. We're shooting up this way. And yet Cuomo says now is the time to reopen the economy. Right now. 3,973 people died yesterday of COVID-19. Now we need to reopen the economy. By the way, Biden goes in 5 days. Follow the science, they told us. They screamed that in our faces. Follow the science. You idiots, follow the science. They were so mad. When COVID was way down last summer, did they open up? Nah. They still had an election to win. To hell with the business you spent decades building. But now, as we're seeing this massive surge in the virus, a lot of people dying, the hospitals are filling up. It's really, really bad. Now they want to talk about reopening. You know, they got Biden coming in. And think about this. What would have happened if Trump had won this last election? Would we just be locked down until herd immunity? Until next year? If the Democrat Party leaders weren't pressing blue cities and states right now for a stronger economy, would anything be changing for us? Of course not. The liberal media has its marching orders. Check out this headline from Newsweek. This will make you laugh. COVID lockdowns have no clear benefit versus other voluntary measures, international study says. I mean, it's just hysterical. A study like this was right-wing propaganda 6 months ago. Now it's in Newsweek. They ruined the Trump economy. They got their mail-in ballots. The game is won. What an amazing scam it all was for them. What a gift COVID has been for the left. And let me just reemphasize, COVID's a real thing. I had COVID. A lot of my friends have had it. A lot of people I know got really sick with COVID. It's a real thing. But the scam is how the Democrats have played this whole thing out. All the reopening that will take place over the next few weeks could and should have happened back in June. After a couple months of lockdowns and studying this thing, we understood the virus. We knew who was vulnerable. We knew we needed to hide the weak, hide the old people, everything like that, keep them safe. We knew how to wear masks and wash hands and keep some personal space. We knew all of these things. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed except the President of the United States. All right, of course, the lockdowns did more harm than good. We all know that. Our next guest, Dr. Richard McCormick, is an ER physician. Dr. McCormick, thanks for coming on. We do appreciate it. What do you make of all of a sudden this wave of liberal support for reopening right in conjunction with Biden going into the White House?
It doesn't surprise me at all. We witnessed this over generations of politics and media. This is more of the same. We've been warning exactly what we've said all along is now true all of a sudden now that we have a Democratic president. We haven't changed what side we're rooting for, and we're always for the people, but they're playing politics.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing that you can see in the science. I mean, I just looked at the numbers. 3,973 people died yesterday. Nothing in the science would lead to this, right? I mean, there's no way if you put Cuomo on the spot right now and said, why does it need to reopen now? Why now? He wouldn't have an answer, would he?
That's right. Science hasn't changed. As a matter of fact, we're more full in the hospitals than we were during the last peak. So this is based on politics alone.
Yeah, absolutely. New York admitted a couple months ago that an incredibly small 1.4% of cases were coming from restaurants, 1.4%. Yet Cuomo still waited, still closed down a lot more restaurants. Is there any possible logical reason that he would be able to give for that choice?
Logical, yeah. The fact that they wanted to win a presidency and play politics. The medicine hasn't changed behind this. Now, we've changed a lot of opinions on how we treat this disease. Yeah. Even how contagious it is. But really, opening up the economy, we've seen the evidence behind that and what it does and doesn't do to the spread of this virus. We've known all along. The war went away, even though we had peaks in deaths at that time. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, this I would think that this has got to be like the worst time. I mean, I think for anybody to advise it right now, this is the big spike. This is about as bad as it's been throughout the entire course. It's just incredible to me to see. And they think that they're going to get away with this is what's so funny. You were one of the voices that said that these lockdowns should have ended back in spring, early on. Tell us why.
What we noticed in the economies that have opened up, and really there's no better example of what you do. And the nice thing about having a federal government that allows states to act independently is you get to watch what works and what doesn't work. And then people can experiment and try to use evidence-based medicine to make their calculations, which may be wrong or right. But those economies that opened up did well. And it didn't have a huge spike at those times. And we're able to get, like Georgia and Florida did very well economically. Our spread of the disease didn't happen any worse than other states, really. Right. And now we're seeing the fruition of this is other states are going to start copying us now that they have a different president.
Absolutely. I mean, we've talked about it before, but in Los Angeles, you had a situation where it seemed pretty clear. They closed everything down in Southern California, and people just started, okay, we can't go out. We're not going to lock ourselves in our room for a year. So they started having people over to the house. And now Lightfoot says, you know what, this is the problem. That Lightfoot's trying to play it off like, oh, now we're realizing people are having house parties. Like it took you 9 months to realize that people were going to gather at home if they can't go to restaurants. But this is kind of the excuse now for reopening.
The good news is it's not going to save them. It's the same old politics. New York and California have contracting economies. Yeah. They have contracting populations. And that happened well before COVID was ever a thing because they have failed governmental policies. And that's one thing we have to pay attention. What is working? lower taxes, opening businesses, letting people make their own decisions. That's as American as apple pie. That's what's made us successful over generations, and changing that to something that wasn't is purely politics. And hopefully the American people are paying attention, because we have another election coming up real quick.
I know, you're right. We got the midterms, and I'm nervous about that too. Coming up, it will happen fast, unbelievably. The lockdowns that you've talked about have harmed a lot of people medically, putting off elective treatments because, you didn't want to go to the doctors, or not allowed to do elective treatments in some cases. And also, I think the psychology, the depression of it, how much harm do you think that did?
Oh, tremendous. I've seen a big spike in psychological disease, overdoses, depression, anxiety. Tons of people are coming to the ER. I just got 4 shifts in a row. And the amount of people who are overdosing and doing bad things, even the abuse inside of households, you can make a case for just the stress in general. There's a great depression out there. The younger generations coming up, and how they view school and how they're learning, and how they're not being able to get teachers help because teachers won't meet with them. They're using that as an excuse. This has not been a good thing for our society, and it definitely drags on the idea of American patriotism and being able to do what we want to do as Americans and make the choices, the educated choices that we make, the chances that we take to be Americans and not just be under control of a government. Yeah.
But between COVID lockdowns and what's happening with big tech right now, it is just a tremendous power grab from government, and the freedoms are just disappearing so fast. It's just unbelievable. I don't feel like I live even in the same country sometimes. Let's talk about the vaccination plan here. Joe Biden put out some details. Let's go ahead and take a look.
Our goal of 100 million shots by the end of our first 100 days in office. Some wonder if we're reaching too far for that goal. Is it achievable? It's a legitimate question to ask. Let me be clear. I'm convinced we can get it done.
It's an aggressive plan. Obviously, they're trying to be their own version of warp speed. What do you think?
I think, thank you, President Trump. This wouldn't be possible without his leadership, without him being able to enable people to do things they've never done in the history of mankind. We've never had a vaccination in less than a year. Matter of fact, this is about 4 times faster than the next closest vaccination we ever come up with and widely distributed. This is something that we really should be thankful for. And this is allowing the private industry to take the shackles off that regulation and government has always held us back with. And you can see what happens when we let the American people accomplish what they're made for.
Yeah, no, it's very true. Are you concerned at all about vaccine supplies at this point?
I'm more worried about the distribution. I think this is something so new as far as technologies. I think it's very saw what Cuomo did, and they threw away vaccinations because of regulation. Once again, unintended consequences of government. Can you believe it? Yeah. Imagine that.
I mean, it's the craziest thing in the world. He complains about not getting enough vaccines, and he's been throwing them away to avoid giving them to the wrong people. What a story that was. Dr. Richard McCormick, good to talk with you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. We have been spoiled by a pretty strong foreign policy game these last 4 years. We've watched ISIS be dismantled, the end of the Iran nuclear deal, which was a joke, the Paris Climate Accords being tossed out, those were a joke. And of course, we can't forget how the president worked on China for us and actually made some progress there. All those policies, though, soon to be wiped out by Joe Biden, it appears. A look at that when we come back. All right, welcome back. Time for your Friday edition of News from the Left. We begin with militant member of the squad, Massachusetts Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. And she, like her COVID-sick colleague Pramila Jayapal, who was caught not wearing a mask, you know that story, is taking no breaks and acting pretty crazy, almost like lunatics, with their latest attack on Republicans. They are blaming GOP members for spreading COVID. But now the accusations have ramped up to Geneva Convention violations. Take a listen to this.
These folks, I mean, they're just, it's criminal behavior, Don. I don't know what else to call it. They have been complicit from the very beginning in their willful criminality to carry the water for Donald Trump and these science denials, which allowed this pandemic to rage out of control. And then by refusing to wear masks, this is criminal behavior. That's chemical warfare, so far as I'm concerned.
These people are so awful. I can't even believe it. Chemical warfare. Was it anthrax, nerve gas, borrowed from Syrian President Bashar al-Assad? Should we call the United Nations? How do we handle this, Ayanna? We need to know. Now moving from the Democrats to their propaganda arm at CNN, of course. Here is the gang of the most unfun morning show on television talking about our president's legacy. And make no mistake, that's not an opinion host over at CNN. That's Nia Malika Henderson, who's a senior political correspondent from CNN, the most untrusted name in news. Hey, you want to know what's wrong with our cities, our blue cities and states? Just ask the Democratic leaders who run them. I'm serious. Don't believe me. Listen to the Emmy Award-winning book author, governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo. Take a listen.
The increasing crime is compounding the problems in New York City. Yes, you have COVID. Yes, you have increasing homelessness. Yes, you have people who are concerned about the long-term economic viability. And you have increasing crime.
AIG Insurance canceled our policy, our insurance, due to my social media profile. So AIG, everybody, is that your insurer? Maybe you want to cancel back. Cancel culture strikes again, this time against one of baseball's all-time greats, Curt Schilling. Keeps coming. Finally, a story that shocked almost everybody that read it. The president of Mexico, look at this, vowed on Thursday to lead an international effort to combat what he considers censorship by social media companies that have blocked or suspended the accounts of U.S. President Donald Trump. Out of left field, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, they call him AMLO in Mexico, leading the way for all the American politicians who are leading from behind. He's not the only world leader, though, condemning American tech giants for this censorship of Donald Trump. German Chancellor Angela Merkel, a woman who hates Trump and has been very critical of him, has also been very critical of the banning of him on social media. But I think the Mexican president doing it is probably one of the best ones. He's also been working hard on keeping the caravans out and securing the northern Mexican border with the United States. It's quite an interesting relationship, considering AMLO is kind of like a Bernie Sanders type. He's much more that direction. So there you have it. Pretty interesting stuff. All right. Coming up here after the break, I'm not going to tell you. We're going to leave you in suspense.
And successfully gets in and gets through, then, it's Katie bar the door.
Interesting. So do you think that these, the president worked on these relationships. He worked on Central America, worked on Mexico to get them to stop these caravans. Why would that change? What would change about that?
Well, Mexico, for instance, agreed to some of the changes, putting troops on their southern border, agreeing to take back into Mexico to wait there on that side of the border for their hearing dates rather than be let go in the U.S. They agreed to that because the president threatened them with trade sanctions. Likewise with Central American countries. The president kind of twisted their arms. And, there was a carrot as well. They got, it's carrot and stick. You offered them aid and help, but also said, look, you're not getting anything if you don't cooperate.
Absolutely.
That he takes over.
By the way,
swift death.
Well, we all know that any kind of immigration, you know, is racist in this country. So now I guess some of these Biden administration people are embracing racist policies. Huh.
No, because once it's the Biden administration doing it, then it just stops being racist.
That's right.
That's the point.
Isn't that beautiful? I mean,
Yeah.
I should just become a Democrat because you just get away with everything. I mean, why wouldn't you be a Democrat? It's amazing.
It's easier.
It's a whole lot easier. The president was at the border in Texas this week. Polls removing 20,000 gang members, he said, that entered the country illegally, a lot of the MS-13 out of El Salvador. Biden, though, pledging to stop the border wall construction. He wants to implement this 100-day freeze on deportations once he takes office. Also raising the cap for refugees coming into the country. The resettlement of refugees, remember Hillary wanted to take it up to a huge number. Biden wants to take it up to 125,000 a year, way more than Trump wanted and has had. He wants to provide citizenship to 11 million illegal immigrants and reopen catch and release as a policy. What exactly? Tell me all the dangers of Biden's immigration policy. What will they do?
Well, the one thing you didn't mention in there that's especially dangerous is that not only has he pledged to freeze all deportations for 100 days. The point of that is, you know, let's fix the system or what have you.
Yeah.
Even after that, though, he has said no illegal immigrant who manages to get one foot inside the U.S. will ever be deported for any reason unless he is convicted of a violent crime. Wow. Not DUI. If you drive drunk, then you can still stay, even if you're illegal. So basically what that means is they have declared open borders.
Yeah.
Now, they'll deny it's open borders. They'll say, no, we're still going to have a border patrol. We're not going to tear down the wall that's there. But if you can get in and then you're guaranteed not to have to leave so long as you don't kill anybody, how is that not open borders? I mean, this is going to blow up in their face.
Yeah.
They are not prepared to deal with it. And honestly, I mean, I don't like to put it this way, but it's kind of worse is better for the Republicans because there's another election in 2 years, and things are going to get pretty bad on the border during those 2 years.
Yeah, they have virtue signaling driving their policy making, which is about the stupidest possible thing you can do. It makes no sense. Everybody knows it. But right now, they're just pandering to the far left, and they're trying to win elections. And if they're going to govern this way, they're going to really make a mistake here. And that's going to be basically the wet foot, dry foot, right? From the policy.
Yeah, basically, I mean, it would be like wet foot, dry foot for everybody.
Yeah.
Once you get in, you're in. Yeah. And we don't even apply that to Cubans anymore. And yet these guys want to apply it to pretty much all illegal immigrants around the world.
Yeah, it used to be applied to Cubans. If you could get here, if you wanted to escape communism, if you wanted to come to freedom, if you can get here on a boat, once you get a foot on South Florida, you get to stay. That was the policy. And now they want to give it to everybody in the world. All right, Mark Krikorian, thank you so much for your time. Good to talk with you.
Thank you. You have a good night.
Appreciate it. You too. In developing technological threats that pose a threat to U.S. national security, foreign affairs experts say that Beijing's tech advancements could be used as a weapon against the United States. Just last month, Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe called China the #1 threat to national security. I think a lot of people already knew that. Joining us now to discuss this further is KT McFarland, former Trump Deputy National Security Advisor, also the author of Amazon bestseller Revolution, Trump, Washington, and We the People. KT, great to talk with you again. The super tech gap, I guess they call it, between the U.S. and China is narrowing here. Just last month, just to fill people in, Chinese scientists announced they've developed the most powerful quantum computer in the world that they claim is 10 billion times faster than Google's quantum computer. And now there is concern, evidently, that this is going to break U.S. encryptions. Just talk about this. I think for a lot of people, it sounds pretty scary, but just explain what it is.
Okay, so what this means is a couple of things. Number one, the Chinese are trying to build the internet infrastructure of the future. Okay. It's called the 5G network. Now, we think of that as, 5G, great, I'm going to download my Netflix movies much more quickly. No, what that means is that China, if it owns the infrastructure, they can listen into all communications, whether it's text messages, emails, top secret information going from one part of the Pentagon to the other, secrets going from our European allies to the United States. They're in the middle of that transaction. So that's number one. But the number two is that China has something called Made in China 2025. And their plan is to, within a couple of years, they plan to be the world's leader in about 10 critical technologies. It's everything from microprocessing to robotics, particularly artificial intelligence, the entire range of things. And they plan to either borrow it, buy it, steal it. And once they're in the dominant position, they really control the future. You control the future technologies, you control the future, which is why the United States has always had the dominant position, really for the last 75 years. We've been the technological innovators, and China is going to make sure that it somehow becomes the technological innovator. And then they're going to decide who gets access to that technology, and it won't be us.
Unbelievable. It sounds right, though. From what we know about China, this sounds like it's right up their alley. You've got Joe Biden coming in 5 days. Long been very soft on China. His son pulled a ton of cash out of China. It's a pretty scary time to have him take power, isn't it?
Yeah, and here's why this is such a big deal. Because the Chinese, they're looking at Joe Biden. I was in China about a year and a half ago, and they thought Joe Biden was going to be president. They were so excited. They've already bought in, right? They've already, as you point out, they have a financial relationship with Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, and his brother. Number two, Joe Biden has always been soft on China. I mean, even when it was easy, it would have been 15 years ago, we could have stood up to China and we could have demanded reciprocal investment opportunities, reciprocal trade agreements. They would have respected our property rights, intellectual property rights. Joe Biden never did any of that. In fact, even in the beginning of this presidential campaign, Joe Biden was asked, well, what about China? And he said, China, they're not going to eat our lunch. They're our friends. They're good guys.
They're not bad
He's not going to stand up to China. And China has every intention within the next decade of surpassing the United States in all of these categories, military, economic, technological, diplomatic, you name it. And then they're going to rewrite the rules of order at our expense.
It's scary. It really is scary.
It is.
You know, you think about it, people I don't think realize just how real that threat is and how it could upend everything that we have in this country. What changes in national security are going to happen in 5 days?
All right. So let's go around the world and do a quick tour.
Sure.
Europe. President Trump has convinced our NATO allies, our security allies, that they all have to contribute more to our common defense to the tune of $500 billion. Well, when Joe Biden comes in, how about if they all come up with an excuse? Oh, COVID has been terrible, really been terrible on our economy. You know, I don't think we could make those pledges that we did. I don't think we could make it this year. So all of a sudden you have Europe kind of going its own direction on our security. Now, then you're going to have the Middle East. So we already have this amazing peace agreement between Israel and the Arab countries. But Iran, the Biden administration is going to be just like the Obama administration. They adore Iran. They're going to enable Iran financially, economically, technologically. And Iran knows this, which is why Iran has started testing missiles and has started enriching uranium. They know that they're going to have the happy days are here again if you're in Iran. What does that do for the world? Well, I think you have a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. And then let's go to China. That's the really big and that's the really obvious one. China plans to push us out of the Pacific. They plan to dominate and control the South China Sea, which is the world's largest maritime trade route. And as I said, they plan to control the internet infrastructure of the future as well as the technologies of the future. And then, you know, they've got something called wolf warrior diplomacy. And it's ruthless, and they're very proud of it. And they have every intention of using that against the United States and every other nation in the world.
Well, that's a great summation. I can see why you had the job under Trump. I want to ask you one more question here. You had these declassified documents that were released from the Senate Judiciary today. Lindsey Graham, it was a big talker today. The Crossfire hurricane investigation. You got wrapped up in this thing. All of this, what are your thoughts on this? Everything related to the FBI's investigation on Russian collusion?
It's all fraud, and they knew it was a fraud. And that's what the documents that were released today show, that the senior leadership of the FBI, they knew there was nothing to the Russia investigation, but they went ahead with it anyway. In fact, not only did they know there was nothing to it, they knew that the foundation, the whole arguments that they were going into the Russia investigation were based on Hillary Clinton's opposition research. It was based on Russian disinformation. The FBI knew it. They didn't care. They decided they wanted to go after Donald Trump and everybody around him, and that was how they were going to do it, even if they had to make it up. I think, though, Rob, watch out for this weekend because there's another tranche of documents that are probably going to come out Sunday or Monday. And these will be far more damning, and it will damn the senior leadership of the FBI. I sure hope somebody's held accountable, but I'm not going to count on it.
We might have to talk to you again early next week then, I guess. And by the way, where are you now? Last time I saw you had oranges behind you growing on a tree. What room is this?
I'm now in Sarasota, Florida with my daughter and my brand new grandson. And my daughter has just started her new job as a representative for Florida for the State House in Tallahassee.
That's right. Well, congratulations
to
her.
I'm granny this weekend.
You're granny this weekend. Okay. All right. I love it. All right. KT, always good to talk with you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Rob. Good to see you.
See you later. All right. The left wants, of course, to put conservatives on the internet's endangered species list. As the censorship continues, a couple states may actually do something about this. Which state?